Hello, my name is Antonio Valente, and for 25 years I've been working in financial services as a trusted resource to help individuals, families, and companies create and protect their legacy. Now, I've said this before, I have to say it again, that most people think being a financial advisor is about stocks and bonds, and I keep telling folks these are just tools in our toolbox. For me, it's about relationships, it's about people, and it's about culture, okay? And it's been my experience that most successful people are driven by living a life of purpose. And that's the secret ingredient in creating a legacy. So gear up, because we're about to climb the Legacy Summit. Okay, friends, thanks for tuning in. This is episode 4 of the Legacy Summit. That's got a nice sound to it, Emilio. So as a reminder for our first-time guests, that I'm a financial advisor here in Dallas, Texas. We service clients across the country. Again, the show is not about investing and it's not about money. It's about living a life of purpose and my conversations with individuals and organizations that are legacy-driven. You ever work with an organization that says, well, that's just the way we've always done it around here? Resistance to change is often the road to extinction. Last week, we had both Ken May, former CEO of FedEx, and Bill Richardson, former governor of New Mexico, here on the Legacy Summit. And both individuals were successful in their respective careers, in part with, let's say, their adaptability to change over time and creating the right culture for their teams. So whether your business is finance, art, military contract, sports, it doesn't really matter. It's hard to dispute that high-functioning teams have a common denominator of adaptability and the right culture. And my next guest is a PhD, a Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author, a keynote speaker, and a strategic visionary consultant, and somebody that, quite frankly, you just need to know. So who do we have with us today? My good friend, Dr. Daren Martin. Daren, welcome to the Legacy Summit.
Hey, I'm so excited about being here. You left off my biggest accolade.
What's that?
Absolute. I know you. I mean,
that's exactly right.
You did say my dear friend, so.
That's exactly right. I'm so happy. I'm happy that you're here with us here today, Daren. I know you were going to be here. He was going to be here today in Dallas, but we've got, like, again, Ice-ageddon going on down here, Daren. And so we made a judgment call. Daren's safety comes first. And so we're going to do this while you're in the great city of New Orleans. Yeah.
So it looks like all heck is going to break loose in big old Dallas. It's actually gorgeous here, but.
Okay, anyway. Rub it in.
Yeah. Good to be with you, though.
Thank you. So, friends, if you don't know, for those who don't know, Daren and I we go way back. We've done a couple different cultural projects together, and I sure have learned a lot from you and your teams and the things that you've put together over the years. In fact, I think it was your book, A Company of Owners. I brought it with me here today. A Company of Owners, Maximizing Employee Engagement, that really started to get my focus on company culture and what it means to be focused about culture. And so let's just dive right in about this book right here, Daren, if you don't mind. The title in itself is provocative. Tell our folks out there a little bit about this book.
So actually, it was born out of a hallway conversation I had when I had a 10-year running contract with an oil and gas company. And I ran into the CEO in the hallway and I said, Dave, you need to fire your employees. And he's like, what are you talking about, Martin? You know, he's calling me Martin. What are you talking about, Martin? I can't fire my employees. I said, yeah, you need to fire them all. And I said, you don't want employees. You want people who act like owners. And I swear to you, I saw a light bulb come on over his head, ding, ding, ding. And then a light bulb went, oh, wow, that registered with this guy. He ended up asking me to do a 3-hour workshop on it at the supervisor school we did every year. And it just got so much traction. I kept speaking on it, and then I thought, man, I gotta put this in a book.
Yeah.
So ultimately produced Company of Owners, and that thing has been a perennial favorite. There are tons of companies, including Access. Shout out to the great John Olajide from Nigeria who started that company, but they use it with all their employees. I don't know if you know them, Antonio, but they're right on the tollway and a huge company.
Yeah.
But at any rate, yeah, the thing is, it's just been amazing, the influence. I found out that a couple of major sports, confabs are using it. Baylor basketball, and then OSU, Oklahoma State,
Yeah.
are using it with their coaching staff, and so it's just kind of cool to see the reach that it's had. But it's really about this idea of how do you create an environment and a culture where people really own what they do. They're not zombie employees. They don't just mail it in.
Yep.
They go to work and man, produce, at a significant level because they love what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've got a quote in this book. It's from Edward Deming, and it says that nobody goes to work to do a bad job. And I love this statement, because, obviously we work with individuals, we work with organizations as well across the country, a lot of folks in HR benefits, and we might be partnering with them on 401k plans and things like this. And so these are individuals that are working with high performing employees and folks that maybe are a little bit challenged, in terms of, is this the place that I really want to go to? So I know right now, watching this, there are 8 HR managers, and I'm guessing when they heard me say that quote, they might have thought of some handful of individuals within that organization where they might question that, like low performing employees, right? Let me ask you this first. Is that a question of motivation? Is it company culture? And what should folks do about folks that don't want to come into the office?
Yeah, well, they 100% should question it because statistically they would be right. 85% of people hate or strongly dislike their job. I mean, people go to work just as a function of, getting a paycheck, and that's it. I walked into a coffee shop a while back, and I I always try. One of my mantras is I amplify the inherent greatness in every person I meet. So I try to bring the biggest amount of energy into the room that I can, right? Which is not hard because most people are walking around like
The
zombies.
zombies, yeah.
Um, so, at any rate, I walked in and this guy goes, "How are you today?" And I go, "I'm outstanding. How are you?" And he goes, "I'm fantastic." Then he goes, "Are you ready for the weekend?" Well, I don't know about you, Antonio, but occupational hazard, I work from home, I work for myself. I never know what day of the week it is. So I'm like,
Yeah.
and then I went, "Dude, today's Wednesday."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Yeah, but tomorrow's Friday Junior." And I
Yeah.
said, "Well, if Thursday is Friday Junior, what's Wednesday?" He goes, "The day before Friday Junior."
Wow.
Now, that makes me want to cry, right? Because
Yeah.
here's a guy, 5 days out of his 7-day week are spent doing something that he can't wait to not be doing so he can get on to real life.
Right.
And I don't think that's what work was ever intended to be. And Deming didn't believe that either. And that's how he transformed manufacturing in Japan, basically, because we wouldn't listen to him here in this country. Good old Wyoming boy.
Yeah.
And it all of a sudden we looked up, and the country that used to be made in Japan meant a joke, piece of junk,
Right.
went to meaning, some of the top tier products in the world. And that's because it was about the people. It was about putting meaning in work. I don't believe that people aren't motivated. I believe they're not motivated about whatever's being offered up to them in their workplace. They don't have autonomy. They don't have any agency. They don't feel like they really matter.
Yeah.
And consequently, they go, okay, and I'm sorry, I'm on my rant, but with the Industrial Revolution, we reduced work to one deal, and the deal was this: you go to work, or you come to work, do what I tell you, and I'm going to give you some money for it, and
Yeah.
that's it. And you've heard old gals say, "Well, they get paid for it. Isn't that enough?"
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not enough, and we've got to change our entire paradigm about what work is if we want people to show up and be truly invested.
Right. Right. You've got another quote inside this book, and I love it because a lot of times when we're working with organizations, we come across what I like to call a resistance to change that comes under the guise of cost, right? And so you talk about this and you say, if you think hiring professionals is expensive, try hiring amateurs. Expand on that.
Yeah, I love that, especially when people balk at my, speaker fee or something. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, come on, you get what you pay for. Um, yeah, it's it's a basic principle that people care about the investment that's made into them. And if they feel like they're not being remunerated appropriately, if they feel like they're not being taken care of, and I know that that's what your whole passion, your whole life is about, is to make sure that people are building their financial legacy, their nest egg, their that thing that kind of gives them that security. Because if you're not secure about what's going on in that area, you're not secure really about anything. And people are just short-sighted about it, investing in people, and companies that invest in their people. I mean, the high-performing companies with teenagers working there, like your In-N-Out Burger or Chick-fil-A, they tend to pay above the pay grade because they want the best of the best of the best, and consequently, their profits and their product reflect that. So there's a deep connection between how supported people feel and the kind of results they produce.
I love that. Daren, let's talk about Unbeach. I love this book. Unbeach Your Company, Learning to Swim in the New Ocean. And I'm not just bringing this book up because I don't know if we can zoom in on there and if you can go out there, but my name is on the back of that cover, okay?
Look at you.
Yeah, I know. I know some important folks, but that's not what I'm talking about. But what's it mean to be a beached organization and learning to swim in the new ocean?
So that book was actually born out of a year and a half culture contract I had with a very, very large company. I won't say what industry, but it might have been DoD related. And basically the bureaucracy, the just slow, cavitation of the wheel turning is just like, come on, that I witnessed there made me realize that a lot of companies are just stuck and they don't even know it. They're so financially successful, they're so large, and they don't realize how beached they are. In fact, one of my favorite quotes, which I butchered the other day, I'm probably going to butcher now, but at some point, every company outlasts its ability to succeed in spite of itself. And beached whale companies are businesses that succeed in spite of themselves. There's a great quote at the opening of that book that talks about when Ticketmaster took over Ticketron, and it said, we didn't feel like we had landed on a worthy opponent. We felt like we had come upon a beached whale. It's just sitting there waiting to be acquired by somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I go through the book and I talk about beached, unbeached, beached, unbeached. The first one I love, you have a beached whale company if you walk around and there's a Dilbert cartoon on every cubicle. People are trying to tell you something. And then I give the solution. What do you do about that? If you skimp on technology, if you've got a ton of broken equipment or resources for people, all that stuff, indicators that you've got a beached whale company.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I've been on with a tech company, like, a phone company or something like that. And they go, oh, sorry, it's taking a while. The system is slow.
Right.
I'm like, why in the world would you give your customer service people, which is the front guard of your entire existence, slow, network, slow equipment? That ought to be speedy fast.
Right.
But there's a lot of stuff that companies need to wake up and realize they're doing that are really dooming themselves in the present or in the future.
Yeah. Here's what I said about it. I said, Unbeached lays out the process to break down the silos which may be destroying or stopping your organization from success. And what I like about it is that this book is really about hope in organizations that are sort of beached, right? and that they don't have to stay that way. And I think you're so creative in how you wrote this, Daren, where you juxtapose the difference between a dying company and a thriving company. And it's almost like this side of the page dying, this side of the page thriving. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, Antonio, you know this because you've read my stuff, but I write books that I want to read. Like they're short, they're pithy. I call them quick read, high impact. And to me, that's, we live definitely in a soundbite culture, but quite frankly, busy executives don't have time to read a 500-page business book tome, right? And I hate these books that tell you what they're going to tell you, then they tell you, then they remind you what they told you, and then they regurgitate what they told you. It's like, come on, make your point and get out. And so if you can't read my books, you're not going to read a book, okay?
I love that. In fact, when I first met you and you gave me your book and you said you probably read it in 5 minutes, and I said, you don't know how slow I read, and you said, you haven't seen my book yet. And you were right. I called you later that day and I was like, okay, it didn't take me 5, it took me 30, but it was great.
Well, I love that your daughter at the time was such a youngin', and by the way, she is just growing up to be one of the most beautiful people on the planet. She always has been.
Thank you.
You can just see her sweet little soul. But she loved whiteboard. You're like, hey, yeah, my daughter's digging whiteboard. Like, oh wow, man, I win.
She did some drawings on that too, right?
Yeah,
I went back here and she shared them with you. I think Jana, if you don't know her, Jana is my daughter, and I suspect that she's on the road to being the next Warren Buffett, but we'll see.
Yeah.
She's interested in healthcare, not finance.
From your mouth to God's ears.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let me transition to The Sync. You co-authored this book right here, The Sync, Radical Transformation with One Small Change, with our friend Walter Nussbaum, who's another brilliant individual. And sometimes I feel folks hear the word change and anxiety, right, sort of builds up. And, the vision of a construction crew, a demolition crew forms in the brain, and it starts to sound like change is a major project, right? And who really has time for that? But change doesn't really have to be that way, right, Daren? And in fact, when we're asked by clients to help them change direction of say, maybe their financial plan or even their company's retirement plan, I suspect that most folks are surprised by how simple changes create compound positive results for them. Tell our folks here how this book came to be and what radical transformation can look like.
So that book was actually born out of a experience that Walter had in a restroom in, I believe it was DFW. But he walked in, there was a guy well-dressed in a suit. He's wiping down the sink after washing his hands. And Walter makes some crack, as Walter will do. And he said something like, well, you've been working here long or something like that. And the guy said, he just smiled at him and he said, no, but you know what they say, why not leave it better than you found it? So the guy leaves, Walter goes to wash his hands. Guess what he does? He wipes down the sink. And as he says, not just that time, but every time. And he tells me the story. I start wiping down the sink. And we start telling this story, and it is so impactful. It's about leave it better. Just leave it better than you found it. And that applies to all sorts of areas. They did an experiment years ago at a large company, and they threw a wad of paper in a big active hallway, and people just walk by. And finally, somebody would stop, pick it up, throw it in the trash can, and they'd go interview them. Why'd you do that? They said, well, come on, this is my house. This is my place. This is where we live. This is where we work. We got to take care of our place here. And you can leave everything you touch every day better. You can leave people better. I don't know if you know this, but everybody loves everybody. Some people they love when they walk in the room, and some people they love when they walk out of the room, right? So are people, when they leave your presence, are they happy to have spent time with you? Are they a better person? Have they leveled up in some way because of that? And so we captured this little idea. I actually called Walter up one day. By the way, I got to get you the new white cover version.
Oh, I like it.
Hardback, Antonio. You're going to love this.
I like it.
I've also got Company of Owners in hardback.
I like that too.
Yeah, you get gifts. But at any rate, I've told that story all over the world.
Yeah.
And it's always funny to me. I'll get up and speak, and then I go in the bathroom afterwards, and there's all these dudes wiping down the sink, and I'm like, "Good job, guys! Yeah, you got it." But that's probably the least business book, although a lot of businesses do use it. In fact, Procter and Gamble, their executive assistants, just started their book club using that book. I think it was this or last week. I guess we're on Monday now, but so it's got a different core message. But if companies would adopt that as a policy, leave it better than you found it.
Yeah.
If teachers would start their school year off with that mantra, we're working on a children's version precisely for this reason.
Yeah.
I actually had a children's hospital buy 8,000 copies of that book because they use it with all their employees. If companies could adopt that, then it would be radical transformation with one small change. Just grabbing that idea.
I'm a big believer, Daren, in like calls to action. And like I said, I know a lot of executives are going to be watching this, a lot of folks in HR. And I'm going to throw this out there as a call to action is let's do the test, right? Let's take a piece of paper and crumple it up and throw it out in a busy hallway and just kind of check it out and see how many folks walk by before they pick it up. And I'm going to say if folks pick it up pretty fast, you're probably on the path in terms of culture about having an organization of owners as opposed to just employees. And if you've got a bunch of folks walking by that paper, it's a run, not walk, into picking up company of owners. What do you think?
Dude, yeah, I was on an early morning power walk, and I saw a spotless concrete cement truck. And there's a guy down there and he's wiping the hub, right? He's just wiping the chrome.
Wow.
I'm like, this is such a weird sight. So I go over to him and I said, hey, is this your truck? And he goes, yeah. I said, what are you doing? He goes, I'm cleaning the truck, like dummy. And then it got really ridiculous because I said, yeah, but why?
Yeah.
I thought he was going to say, well, because if I don't, and the manager comes by, I'm going to be in big trouble. Or I'm trying to win the contest where I get the trip to Hawaii this year for the cleanest truck or something, right? He just looked at me and goes, you've got to take pride in your work, right?
Oh, I love it.
I looked that company up. And by the way, 6 months later, I saw a concrete truck that was dripping oil everywhere.
Yeah.
Crap all over it. The workers milling around, 1 out of 5 of them was actually doing something. The rest were just standing around like I hate my life, right? The contrast between those two companies. Now, I ask you that company's out of Colombia, and they have been, yearly recognized as one of the top companies in that country because of their culture.
Yeah.
Now, which of those truck companies do you think cuts corners? Do you think skips on their, sort of cheats their employees or doesn't take care of them on a short-term and a long-term basis? Which of those companies, et cetera, we can go on. You don't even have to guess at that, right? Because as I say, the way you do anything is the way you do everything.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, my wife hates that. She throws it up in my face all the time. She's coming through the room right now. She goes,
Elise, how you doing?
Anytime I do something sort of half-baked, she's like, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Okay, baby. Use my own stuff against me.
Daren, I love it. I love it. Hey, folks, we're going to take a quick break here, but when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation with Dr. Daren Martin, exploring his new book, Architecting a Company of Owners, his work as a consultant, and his circuit as a dynamic keynote speaker. So please stick around with us at the Legacy Summit. We'll be back in just a minute.
Experience. It makes all the difference. The Penn Valente Group has decades of experience in navigating clients through various market cycles since the early 1980s. We have the experience investors need to help make the right decisions when it matters most. We invest our time in building strong relationships with our clients. This leads to better outcomes for our clients. Investing for the long run is the right advice, but it ignores basic human nature. The fear and greed cycle leads investors to buy high and sell low. We help our clients become informed investors by maintaining the highest standard of care with consistent communication regardless of the market's direction. We act as the voice of reason with realistic expectations for how markets actually behave. Over shorter periods, market returns have a very wide range of results. Over longer time periods, outcomes tend to center around long-term averages. History matters. We don't panic during times of market stress. Big drawdowns in the stock market have been a common occurrence, and we understand that's typically when our clients need us most, and the manifestation of our work together will likely be most evident. We prefer preparation over panic and understand that though diversification is key, it is also hard. Why? Because true diversification means holding underperforming assets. If everything is working, it means your portfolio is not actually diversified. With the knowledge of behavioral biases such as loss aversion, we understand that losses are more painful than gains are pleasing. The math behind diversification makes sense, but its psychology can be troubling. Experience. It makes all the difference, and that's peace of mind for our clients when it matters most. Give us a call at 214-373-2925 or find us online at pennvalentegroup.com. Let's see how our experience can help you better achieve your goals and enhance your family legacy.
Okay, friends, we are back. Thanks again for sticking around for part 2 of the Legacy Summit. And we're here with my good friend, Dr. Daren Martin, and we've been talking about Daren's legacy as an author and how effective he has been as an agent of change. And earlier in the show, Daren, we talked about A Company of Owners, your book. It was wildly successful and a Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller. But you wrote a sequel to that called Architecting a Company of Owners. Let's talk a little bit about that book. What's going on in it?
So Company of Owners was the wake-up call, like, hey, you want a company of owners. It was meant to dislodge, leaders from their thinking and say, yeah, I want that. And then the challenge that followed with it is they come up to me and say, how do I create that? How do I get a company of owners? So I'm like, well, I've got a roadmap, so I should write it down. So I ended up, I was doing a lot of speaking on it, and I finally put it down in the book, the 4 C's of architecting a company culture of owners, because cultures happen either by default or by design. Most happen by default. They're terrible. And by the way, a little sidebar, and I know you'll be interested in this. There was a Harvard study that showed that companies that get their culture right, which is very few, only 16% of executives say our culture is where it needs to be. When they get it right, they see an increase in their net profitability over 10 years of 756%.
Unreal.
Net profitability.
Unreal.
I mean, if a business leader's listening to this and that doesn't get their juices going, I don't know what will. But
right.
So architecting is really about the 4-step process of building a great culture. It starts with the first C, calling it by the right name. You got to admit, where we really are. It's kind of like an AA thing. It's got to start with recognizing where you are and admitting it, and saying it out loud.
Yeah.
Because so many executives tell me, oh, yeah, our culture is great. And you go dig a little into the organization, everybody's going, oh, my God, our culture's terrible.
Right. Because they're afraid to admit it, right? They can't admit it, right?
Yeah. So call it by the right name. Then you got to craft it. Okay, what do we want it to look like? We've got to build this. What's it going to be? Yeah. And then you have to cast it. It's about getting the right people for the kind of culture you're trying to create. And then you have to cultivate it, obviously, because as I say, you want an organism, not an organization. Most companies are organizations. You mentioned silos earlier. It's in your quote on Beach, your company on the back of the book.
Yeah.
And silos are the bane of every company's existence, but they abound. So you got to cultivate it. It's an organism, just like we have to feed ourselves, take care of ourselves every day. That's what you have to do with a great company culture. And companies that do that reap really big rewards. You know, your Patagonias, your Wawa. I don't know if you've ever heard of Wawa, but it's
Absolutely.
like
I grew up in Jersey.
yeah. Oh, did you really?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's actually an employee-owned company,
Yeah.
but there's a palpable difference when you walk into a Wawa from when you walk into some other, let's
Right.
just say, fast gas food chains.
Yep.
You can just feel it. You can feel the ownership, and it's not just because they own part of the company, but it's because of what they breed there. They focus on them having a good time and loving their jobs. So companies that get it right, man, it's pays huge dividends.
Night and day. Hey, Daren, we've been talking about your books here, and obviously you're an author, but you're not just an author, right? So I've seen you speak at many events. I mean, you've spoken at my own team's events, right, for my own clients. So what's it mean to you to be a keynote speaker at events?
So I say a great movie to me is one I'm still thinking about 3 weeks, 3 months later, and it changed my life in some way. And that's what I want to do when I speak. People ask me all the time, "Oh, you're a motivational speaker," and I'm like, yeah, I hope I motivate. But it's not about the rah rah.
Right.
It's about the run run. What are people going to go do when they get these, business nuggets, or when they hear a principle like "leave it better"? And what does that mean? And how you put that into practice? Owners go to the ball. What does that look like? And so when I speak, nothing makes me happier than when I hear from people years later, and which is always nice when it pops up and they say, "Wow, I heard you speak in such and so, and I've been doing XYZ ever since." Deal changer.
Yeah.
Because I want to. You talk all about legacy, and my legacy really, Antonio, is about the impact I have on people and their lives, and those things that get passed down to their children and their children's children. So that's what makes me happy. And dude, it's something incredibly humbling and awesome about being able to get up in front of a whole bunch of people and share a message and see them engaged and see them, highly involved. I'm actually getting ready to do a repeat. The CEO told me we never have the same person back, but your message was so on point last year that I want to bring you back this year. It's actually in Dallas. Shout out to the great Remington Hotel Group. And Tony, maybe I can sneak you in the back room when I do that one.
You let
it's
me
going to
know.
be in April.
I'll be there. I'm in town in April, so I'm available. Talk about Daren Martin, the consultant.
So, a lot of people that do consulting, advising, first of all, consulting sounds like code for out of work, but there are actually some of those of us out there that are making money doing it, making a living.
Well, let me take the step back, because when I think of that, I sort of see like your integration. You got books, you're keynote speaking, but you're also an executive to, in terms of consulting, strategic change. So I want to talk a little bit about how that is all integrated. That's what I mean when I say talk about Daren Martin, the consultant.
Well, so I, for starters, and this is very important, I ran my own business for 20 years, built it from scratch, built it up to, a small business, 50 employees, or contractors / employees. I laid awake at 4 a.m. worrying about making payroll. Okay, so I'm not coming out of a vacuum of, oh, hey, let me tell you how to run, business, right? And so I've been through a lot of those ups and downs and learning it the hard way, because when I got my PhD in psychology, they didn't teach us a lick about business, right?
Right.
I had to get that on my own. And then when I went through a life change, I was fortunate to catch a break, go on with this boutique consulting firm, thanks to the great Blake Leith, who signed me on, and I got some early wins. And when you're in that many companies, I mean, I'm talking Fortune 100, Fortune 50, some mom and pops as well. You start to see the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And that's where the books came out of. So all of the books are born out of my experience, real world, being in real companies, talking about real issues, with everything from executives to people, as I say, closest to the valve.
Right.
When I was at Holly Frontier, I dealt with everything from the C-suite, doing coaching and advising there. But I also went out in the control rooms dressed with the hard hat, the goggles on, and my blues.
Yep.
Had my own little pairs of Daren on it. So you get the breadth of what's going on, and it's always amazing to me that people will tell people from the outside all sorts of stuff that they don't necessarily tell people in management or people who work there. So I had the tremendous joy of being a problem solver, like a consigliere for the plant manager, and from that standpoint, or it was I got to go and say, hey, I'm noticing some themes, because I never said, well, Billy said XYZ, because
Right.
I would lose my credibility. But it was just awesome to be able to see the breadth of a business and be able to highlight what's broken, what needs to change, what can we do to make it better. And that's really the root of what I would say my consulting is. I've been around the block. I've done a lot of stuff, and
Right.
It's just bringing an outside voice. Look, I've got coaches, informal coaches, but Walter Nussbaum's a coach,
Yeah.
right? Walter
great one,
coaches
too.
me all the time. You
Yeah.
coach me. I mean, I get feedback from friends on, hey, you may want to look at XYZ because we don't see it when we're in it
Yeah.
like you do from the outside.
Truth. Last week, I said this earlier in the show, last week we sat down with Ken May, former CEO, FedEx, Topgolf, Krispy Kreme, and with Bill Richardson, former governor of New Mexico. We had some laughs together, kind of like we're having here, but I came up with this thing of rapid fire questions, Daren, and I'd like to ask you some of those questions as well. Does that sound good for you?
I used to do that when I had my podcast, which I'm going to reignite, and I love it. Let's do it.
Okay. Question 1, what's your superpower?
My spidey sense, after having tens of thousands of hours of conversations with people, both when I was doing my counseling and then doing my consulting, is I can read people really, really well. And that is, invaluable just in life and business.
Yeah. I usually tell folks when I'm working with them, or like if it's a first conversation, or obviously we get a lot of referrals, and the first thing I'll know, and they'll ask me, well, I don't know if this is in, and I said, I know whether I want to work with somebody within 7 seconds. And I'm usually never wrong. I think I'm like 93% accurate in that. Sometimes I need to go like 25 seconds, but it's usually within 7. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
What do you look for in clients, right? I mean, I know you've worked with Adobe, you've worked with PayPal, UPS, but I mean, you've worked with me. So what do you look for in clients?
So I just turned 60 this year, and I would tell you that at this stage in life, I want clients that are going to be teachable. I always say, beware the person that is always the teacher, never the student.
Yeah.
I want people who are open and, interested, and I want people who are fun, to work with.
Yeah.
I did a deal for a while, and it was such a colossal beating that I quit it. I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
It's not good for my life.
Right.
And, the great Tony Robbins said, I don't do anything unless I'm making money or having fun. And the best ones are when I'm doing both. And that's what I like.
Yeah. I always say, like, if we can't laugh together, we can't work together. And I really mean that,
Yeah.
What do you feel like you've mastered, and what do you feel like you're still learning?
Wow. Okay, man. How's there a short answer to that question? But I think what I've mastered or am mastering, because I never consider myself to have mastered something, because then you quit learning, but I'm mastering the ability to concisely put something in a way that has a high impact, like we talked about with the books.
Right.
Thoreau said, simplify, simplify, simplify. And somebody came along and crossed out the two repetitive simplifies. But I hope I'm a wordsmith in a way, a storyteller that really has an impact.
Yeah.
I am continuing to learn what it means to actually, like when I get on stage, for example, just completely let go.
Yeah.
And just let go and be as authentically me as I can be, because that's when the best stuff comes out.
Yeah.
We go through so much training and rigor, and you're supposed to do this and look this way and do that. I've abandoned all of that a long time ago because I don't believe in it.
Right.
But I'm continuing to learn how to really connect at a very significant level on an ongoing basis.
I love that. In my world, there's a rite of passage to I would say, successfully navigate clients through tough times, kind of like what we're going through now in this world, bear markets, things like that. Is there a rite of passage for the aspiring authors or speakers that are out there? I know like writer's block comes to my mind, but I just would love to get your thoughts. Is there a rite of passage?
Yeah, people, I say, hey, if you want to write, the best, if you want to speak.
Speak. Yeah.
Antonio, I used to go down to the park, down from our condo, Clyde Warren Park, at 5 a.m, get on that big stage and preach my little lungs out, right, to a dark park full of people, with no people. So it's about the doing. I always tell people, well, I'm a 35-year overnight success, So if you got to prime the pump. You mentioned change, by the way. John Paul Getty said, in times of rapid change, it's what you know that may hurt you. And we are definitely, do you know what VUCA is?
I do not.
VUCA is, and tell me if this is not the world that we're living in. VUCA is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. We live in a world of VUCA.
Yeah.
And who is the general that said, if you don't like change, you're going to like, obsolescence even less, right?
Right.
He didn't use that word, but man, I could go on and on. I loved the guy that said, in today's world, it's not the big fish that eat the little fish, it's the fast fish that eat the slow fish. And our world is accelerating.
Right. And
businesses either accelerate with it or they die.
Yeah. Wow. Successful people learn from other successful people, right? Our friend Tammy Klang, right? She's the CEO of On Fire Books. And Amelia, we need to get her on the show too sometime. But she's got a saying, and I love it, right? It says, iron sharpens iron. She says that all the time, if you know her. You've mentioned a couple folks earlier in the show, but is there anybody you'd like to, in this point right here, give a shout out to?
I was thinking about this the other day. First of all, Tammy Kling, oh, God bless her, man. She gave me the title Whiteboard for my book. She took one look at the rough draft manuscript, said you should call it Whiteboard. I'm like, oh, you're a genius, right? She's helped me so tremendously. I've got a whole group of people that I have not personally met. I've maybe been in the same room with them, Tony Robbins back when had a big impact on me, those kinds of people, Jordan Peterson, everything from religious teachers from all sorts of faiths. Just listening to Wayne Dyer yesterday, what a great guy. But I tell people all the time, you are the amalgamation of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
Ooh.
Antonio, my friend list has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller over the years, but oh my God, it's some rare air with the people that I am blessed to hang out with. We talked about Bob Kraut, Will Von Bolton, Ted Hoffman, Chart Westcott, Pat Parsi, I could go on, and Walter Nussbaum. Those are the people that have had the most impact on me and continue to have the most impact. and they inspire me and speak truth into my life every day.
Yeah. I know a lot of those folks. Actually, I know them all. And they're all amazing, which maybe goes back to successful people hang out with successful people, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. If you want to get somewhere, you've got to hang out with people who have gotten there or who know how to get there, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, my apologies, because I know I left off like 5 or 6 people that absolutely are on the list.
It's rapid fire. You don't know what questions are coming.
Yeah.
I don't even know what questions I'm going to ask. So I just go with the flow here. What are your thoughts when folks are out there looking for organizations or, I don't know, investment professionals or what have you, painters, and they're out there in the market looking, hey, I want to work with a new organization. I want to work with, what should they be looking for?
Well, they ought to look at the culture. They ought to find out what people are saying about the company. And I know this is huge for your world, but they need to look at how they take care of their people. Do they treat them like hired minions, or do they treat them like incredible valued resources? And you notice I didn't use the word asset, because we got to change our whole thinking about the verbiage we use for people and for work. But look, you deal with this all the time, Antonio, at Penn Valente Group. You deal with going into companies, figuring out what they need to create the best, kind of a landing strip for their people.
Yeah.
And companies who take that seriously, I'm sure you get a range. I'm sure you've had people like, just whatever. Can you beat the latest price or whatever?
Right.
There's a big difference when you have a conversation with someone and they say, look, we really believe in our people and we want to take care of them and we want great things for them. And I think companies that invest in their people invest in the company, and it pays huge dividends.
Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with it. I mean, if you're not investing back into the people, you're not investing into the future of the organization. And that's usually the road that you find yourself, the road of extinction is what I call it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say every employee wants 3 things. They want to be going, like, I know I have a future here.
Yeah.
They want to be growing. Growing has nothing to do with work.
Right.
It has to do with, are they having opportunities on Tuesday to learn Mandarin from 2 to 3 o'clock if they want?
Right.
The biggest thing companies could do for people is help them get towards financial independence.
Yeah.
Right? We don't teach that at work.
Right.
Those are the things that, change people's lives. And the last thing, they want to be glowing. I mean, they want to go to work and be like, whoa. You know how it is. People drag themselves in on a Monday and they dance out on a Friday. And if that's what's going on at your company, you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yeah, because you're on the clock at that point. You're on the clock. All right, now we're having a great conversation here, and I've been asking you questions, 20 questions already here, but you could take a minute before you answer this one here, okay? What's one question that I have not asked you that you wish I asked you, and then I'll go ahead and ask it now.
Wow. Antonio, I'm not sure I have anything. You've done such a good job asking questions. We talked earlier about, how'd I get here?
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that's important is that people know it's been up and down. It's been, times of despair, times of, why am I doing this? What am I doing? Is this going to have any impact at all? What's going to happen here? And it's an old philosopher said, it's about a consistent discipline in the same direction. And I'm butchering their quote now. But it's the journey, right?
Yeah.
And if you can learn to enjoy the journey, it's not about getting somewhere. It's not about getting to Tucson. It's about the journey to Tucson.
Yeah.
And, mutual friend of ours, Dean Lindsay, who, by the way, is on the cover of the first book I ever published, which is coming back out in big form.
Oh, I haven't read that one. I haven't read that one.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
But the great Dean Lindsay said the book should come with a highlighter. But Dean has told me from the first time I met him, it's about fiddling forward, right? Just keep fiddling forward. And if you're waiting on a destination versus enjoying the journey, you're going to miss your whole life.
Wow.
So, and I also say, by the way, people want what you have. They don't want to do what you did.
Yeah.
You're laughing, and I know why you're laughing, Antonio, because anybody successful as you are in a crazy way, you get it.
Yeah.
You know what it was like. I mean, our buddy who started the last Tuesday at Ritz-Carlton, he was trying to build a law practice, and he didn't have anything going, and he needed to build a networking, kind of vehicle. Now he's crazy successful, right?
Yeah.
So people want what you have. They don't want to do what you did.
I love that. Oh, wow. I love that. All right. Daren, you are amazing. I'm sorry you couldn't make it here, but there was no way we were going to risk anything. And I'm glad we were able to have this time and have this heart-to-heart conversation here.
I don't know how I got on the show, quite frankly, with Ken May and the former governor or mayor. Like, what the heck?
Oh, you're too humble, my friend. You're too humble. Folks, you can learn more about Daren and his books on his website, which is www.daren, spelled D-A-R-E-N, Martin.com. We're going to have that listed here. You can see that here. And we'll bring up his website. And Daren, again, I can't thank you enough for being on the show with us. Seriously, it's an honor to have you here on the Legacy Summit. And, it's a special privilege in my heart to be able to call you a friend of mine. We are out of time here today. I'm telling you, these hours just go by really, really fast, Emilio. And again, friends, my name is Antonio Valente, and I'm a financial advisor here in Dallas, Texas, but we service clients and organizations across the country. If you'd like to be a guest on the Legacy Summit or need assistance with your family wealth planning or legacy planning, please reach out to me. Like I said earlier in the show, legacies are made and protected with intentionality and purpose. My team and I are ready to have that legacy conversation with you. Thank you, and God bless.